When you contemplate any kind of change in your life, you are entering into a world of creative living. Now, to be clear, creative living is not about being a creative person like an artist, although many of us are creatively inclined. It's about living a life that is driven more strongly by curiosity than fear. Welcome to the Go Go Bistro podcast, where we dish up inspiration for women who are hungry for change and ready to make it happen. I'm your host, Noelle Van, an author, creator, and empowerment coach who spent years in corporate America helping innovators and leaders ride the waves of change with ease and grace. I now work with women to step into change and unleash the power they have to create a life they love. This is a space to let go of the fear and say yes to possibility. Whether you're contemplating a change in your career, relationship, health, lifestyle, or anything in between, nothing is off the table. I'll be serving up simple insights to help you manage the ups and downs of change and share my interviews with successful women who took a leap of faith to create the life they knew they were meant to live, sharing their wisdom, advice, and all the juicy lessons they've learned along the way. So join me at my favorite little two-top, pull up a chair, and let's get started. With change comes uncertainty. We know this. Since we're unable to predict the future, anytime we venture out to do something different, there will always be some fear of the unknown. Fear is one of the most basic of human emotions. It's programmed into the nervous system, and from the time we're infants, we're equipped with the survival instincts to respond with fear when we sense danger or feel unsafe. So when we entertain the idea of making a change of any kind in our lives, our sense of safety is immediately tested and can automatically trigger a feeling of fear. Now, it's important to know that fear can be disguised as many different things: resistance, procrastination, uncertainty, judgment, anxiety, or sometimes even anger. So oftentimes we're not consciously aware that we're experiencing fear in the first place. Now, this is something important to internalize. When you contemplate any kind of change in your life, you are entering into a world of creative living. Now, to be clear, creative living is not about being a creative person like an artist, although many of us are creatively inclined. It's about living a life that is driven more strongly by curiosity than fear. Now think about it. A life that is driven more strongly by curiosity than fear. Now you will notice driven is an operative word here. Curiosity takes the front seat, but fear is always along for the ride. And that's totally okay. Our goal is not to try to get rid of fear entirely, but to recognize its presence and still move forward and take action anyway. Because fear never completely goes away. In fact, we can never eradicate fear from our lives altogether. So the key is to recognize and accept its presence when it shows up. Now let's talk a little bit about the different types of fear that can show up when change is on the horizon. The first is fear of failure. Now this is a big one. Failure has different meanings to each of us, and this can have a huge impact on your motivation to take on a risk of changing something in your life that you don't know is going to be a sure thing or successful. And that's why it is so critical to commit to accepting different outcomes. Think about what it will take to open yourself up to the end result, even if it isn't exactly what you expected. Because oftentimes, when we step into something new, the universe may have something even better in store for us than we envisioned. So it's really about putting your desire for something better above your fear of failure. Now, the second is lack of direction. And this fear often shows up as confusion or feeling lost and happens when we're so steeped in our situation or state that we become overwhelmed and feel like we've suddenly lost all sense of direction and have no idea where to start. When this happens, it's important to look within and get quiet and listen to your own intuition. What is it telling you? It can also help to seek support from others. Often their perspective can wiggle loose the doubt and move you into action. Sometimes all it takes is the first step to open you up to a new path ahead. Now, the third is fear of the unknown. As we all know, uncertainty is inevitable. With any step out of the norm, there is a risk. It really comes down to knowing this and letting the outcome present itself. Yes, we would all like to know how our life is going to turn out, but that's not always the reality. And let's face it, that kind of predictability takes away all the fun and mystery out of the human experience. It's human nature for us to cling to the comfortable, familiar, and predictable. But we often forget that just because something's familiar doesn't always mean it's safe, secure, or even healthy. So letting go of your need to control is really the only way around this one. Once again, faith comes into play here, but it's really a trade-off. How badly do you want to improve the situation? This is the key question to keep asking yourself when doubt begins to creep in. How badly do you want it? Now, the fourth is judgment from others. Oh, I am so familiar with this one. I feel like it's the root of all resistance in our lives. Our constant need to please, not disappoint, and seek approval from others. It's just a habit we've fallen into since childhood. And society thrives on this, by the way, and it's just another way of keeping us from sharing what we can bring out into the world. The more we get out of our own way and accept that our life is ours to live, the less this will be a roadblock to change. This takes time and practice in overcoming insecurity and putting your well-being above anyone else's idea of how you should live your life. I always say 99% of the time, people are way too preoccupied with their own lives to pay attention to mine. Now, much of our insecurity is just based on a story we've made up in our heads. As you grow in your ability to block out the background noise and listen to your own guidance, even your strongest of critics will have no power to interrupt your focus on doing what feels right to you. I find this becomes more and more evident as we get older for some reason. It seems that time, experience, and a bit of maturity helps us refine this skill. So now that we've reviewed a few of the fears that can show up, let's talk about how to let our curiosity take the lead. So curiosity is a calling or pull to learn something new, and that's what change is all about, something new. So moving into this state is merely a shift away from doubt and into exploration, a far more expansive state to be in. The great thing about curiosity is that it interrupts this self-centered cycle we get into when we start thinking about others' perception of us, and puts our energy and focus on a goal or outcome. Our desire to know more or feel more or do more overrides the fear, and that can be very powerful. So whenever the contemplation of a change feels challenging to me, I often go into discovery mode. I think about all of the interesting outcomes it could create, and this instantaneously puts my focus back on my goal or intention, which is a far better place to be. So here's a little exercise to help replace fear with curiosity. When you start to feel that stir of doubt or uncertainty, ask yourself a few simple questions. Am I willing to feel some discomfort in order to grow? How will this change benefit my life? What will success look like? And then finally, what are the consequences of not making this change? Because one thing to keep in mind, sometimes the result of not taking action can have a far more negative impact on our well-being than just taking that first step to make it happen. Now, these are just a few questions to help you consciously step into change with your eyes wide open. Playing out the different scenarios will often help you to mitigate the fear and bring your desired outcome back into focus. Always remember, deciding to make a change is a commitment to yourself to not only think bigger for your life, but to step into a braver version of you. That's it for now, and until next time, never let fear get in the way of creating what you want in life. Thanks for listening to the Journeys Through Change podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or really wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us and leave a review if you've enjoyed this episode. And share it with a friend or on social media to spread the good word, so more women like you can find us and join in on the fun. For more information on the podcast or Day by Day book, go to livedaybyday.com.